Welcome back, everybody, to DreamHack Valencia 2016. We're not quite ready for Swiss round 4, so don't get too excited just yet. Our matches are still underway for round number 3, so we need to finish them all. As you guys know how Swiss works, every game has to finish before we get our seedings for the next round. So at the moment, we're finishing up a couple. We'll let you guys know when. In the meantime, I decided to just hop on the microphone and interview a couple people. I'm joined by a guest that Nips recommended. It's Kuftan from Finland. How's it going, man?
It's going really well so far. I had a bit of technical issues in the first round. I was one of the people who couldn't get into a match, but outside of that, it's been going great. I have literally yet to drop a game.
It's awesome. So you 3-0'd 3 times?
Yeah, so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, right now, because of the way information spread is, we don't actually know anything about your decks. Feel free to reveal it if you want to. I recommend not, just because information is power.
Yeah, I will say that I have a deck that I think beats most of the meta that I've been just crushing everyone with so far.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's we'll see it later on if I.
Maybe we have to feature you now next game.
Damn.
Yeah, you didn't think about that, did you?
Oh no.
How's your misplay?
Yeah. Now the deck's gonna be out there. It's gonna be a massive issue. But yeah, I mean that's been doing really well, and then yeah.
Finnish players historically, at DreamHack, have actually kind of an interesting reputation. Outside of Savits, I think a lot of people don't know too much about Finnish players. So last time we had one of the Finnish players last summer where Nico played, he actually didn't do too well. But people have kind of like this impression they don't really think much about Finland outside Savits. So why don't you talk a little bit about the Finnish Hearthstone scene?
Yeah, I mean, we actually have a pretty, there's not a lot of teams. There's not a lot of teams sending people out to tournaments and to play in tournaments. But there's actually a lot of good Finnish players around, let's give a shout out to Zump and Creeps, for example, who've been helping me out prepare for this. Creeps.
Oh, Creeps.
Yeah, he's been helping me prepare a bit for this, and just really good, completely unknown players. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more Finnish players going forward because the scene is actually pretty good and growing currently.
Gotcha. So, are you the best Finnish player?
Oh, I can't say that.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, okay.
He's not watching. CBs doesn't watch Hearthstone anymore.
Okay. Thank God. No, I mean, there's. I try to be very political. I'm not gonna go out and say there's Erse. Erse is obviously.
You're not denying it. I'm actually going full American lawyer on you. You're not denying it. Therefore, well, you deny it at least. Because if you can be political by saying no.
I will definitely not deny it.
All right, there it is. There's your answer.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Next thing you're gonna tell me you had private emails on the server that you took home.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Erse fight me.
Oh, yeah, Erse, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Erse is how I say it.
He did pretty well at DreamHack Winter, and a couple of DreamHacks he's gone pretty far.
He did all right last time as well, just couldn't quite make it all the way through.
Yeah, Erse's shout out to him as well, playing some cool decks. So, yeah, man, Finland people don't really know much about, but definitely on the map here. Is this how many tournaments have you been to?
I haven't been to too many. This is only my second DreamHack. And then there's been Cluj and some online tournaments. I was in the Volco and Deckmasters.
Gotcha. And how'd you do in those events?
I have a top 8 from Cluj and top 12 or whatever from Vulcan. So I've been on the cusp of making it big a couple of times, but never just make it all the way through.
So you can't claim that you're the best yet based off results.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's the results that really hamper my ability to say that I'm the best. Yeah.
Gotcha. Fair enough. How'd you get into Hearthstone?
Oh, I just started like a lot of people, watching Crip stream it when it was back in beta, in the early days, and just.
So you don't watch Crip stream anymore?
Oh, shit. Well, I mean, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy, and I will give him that.
Crip is a nice guy. A lot of people give him this impression that he's, that he's baby rage personified on stream, but Crip's actually pretty nice. Yeah. I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, or how about this? A better thing. He's nicer than what you might think. I mean, he does sometimes throw in the sarcastic comment that you're just like, shake your fist at him. But Crip's a good dude.
Yeah. So Frodan hates Crip confirmed.
I mean, sometimes I do, but I also love Crip too. It's like a love-hate relationship.
Oh yeah. Okay. I get that.
Kind of have it. It's like a hot-cold thing. It depends on the mood of the week. Sometimes it's Tuesday. Sometimes it's Friday night. Yeah. Well, it's awesome, man. So, what are some of your favorite streamers now? Do you watch any streams still, or do you just primarily play?
I watch all of them. I'll give a shout out to Asmodai. I love Asmodai's stream.
Yeah. You're an Asmo boy?
Yee.
Okay, yeah.
What was that? I missed
that. Asmodai is a cool guy, man. I like his stream a lot. I actually host him a lot after I stream.
Yee.
So is he your favorite streamer?
I'd say so, sure.
Okay, cool,
Yep.
cool. All right, well, I mean, I don't really have too many more questions. I think we're just pretty much just chatting, getting to know you a little bit better in case. Well, now I think we might have to feature you because you're talking about this hype deck that is beating the entire meta game. You can't just tell me that. You need to downplay your own deck. Be like, yeah, I'm just playing like boring stuff, man. Don't show me on stream.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, man, see you later. No, it is pretty cool that you're able to address the meta. Give me a quick opinion on how you entered impact the meta and just like what your thoughts on Swiss format in general.
I mean, Swiss I obviously love. I don't think you'll find a player here who doesn't love the Swiss format overall. It's just, it really helps get the best players on top at the events. But Standard, I don't know. I had really high expectations of Standard when it got released. And now the meta's kind of beginning to like, settle down, and it's pretty stale currently, I'd say.
I think some people would agree with you, only because we've seen a lot of stuff. If you take a step back and you look at all the decks that are viable, and you look at what we've seen across the board, I think the only complaint you can really say is that we don't have Paladin Priest currently popular in the metagame. But, the same was the exact case right before Standard, where like a few decks really mussed out a lot of the other things. And I personally think, and maybe you don't agree with me, but I personally think that right now in the current meta, it's probably one of the best settled metas we've ever had. Like in terms of like settled metas where it's like 2 months or 3 mons into content release, it's usually like 1 or 2 decks just really punish everything else, and then we just figure it out.
There's the highest echelon of decks where like these shamans and warrior decks are, but like there's a lot of stuff that's fighting for that spot, and it's like
Druid's really coming out. And
sure.
then don't forget, like, Warlock's still around here, of course. So, I think personally, out of all the settled meta, this is one of my favorite. But, of course, I'm agreeing with you. I feel like more content's good just because of how much I'm an avid consumer of Hearthstone. But, hey, man, good to get your opinions. Do you want anything else you want to say in this interview?
Just shout out to all of my stream viewers at home, all of the Kufdan boys. Hi, guys. Puck champ.
Oh.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, maybe if you make some waves in this tournament, it'll turn into an army, not just a couple of boys.
Nice.
I can't tell if you're memeing on me and you're about to say, here comes that boy or something, or you're just actually responding out of pure surprise. Either way, it's delightful. Thanks for stopping by, Kufdan. Good luck in the rest of the tournament. I'm going to see if I can drag another person here. I think Ecop said he wanted to be interviewed. We'll find some guy. If not, then we'll find Ecop. In the meantime, stay tuned, guys. More DreamHack Valencia action right after this. Hey guys, Frodan here again, and we're back with another guest just to buy a few more minutes before we go into our Swiss rounds. I'm joined by Ecop, who is currently eliminated by round 4, man. Feels kind of bad. I guess you went 1 and 2. Is that correct?
I did.
That's kind of unfortunate. You want to talk about your bad beats? Here's a shoulder to cry on if you'd like.
Well, I think I already cried enough on Twitter, but yeah, it's been rough. I mean, it's what can you do? I'm not even salty about it anymore. Like I was at first, but after when you're used to stuff like this happening in card games in general, then yeah, you
just need a few minutes, reset yourself, kind of take a breath, and then everything's okay again.
Yeah, I mean, just gonna farm some points now, whatever.
Farm some points in what? The ladder?
Gosu points.
Oh, Gosu points. Oh, okay. Yeah, the real points, the one that mattered a lot. Yeah. Gosu game ranking. I mean, it is kind of relevant. We're using that for the world rankings and stuff. So, I mean, in the end, though, I think, like you said, you can play out the matches. I think that's what people like about Swiss too. I think, I don't think there's any player that really doesn't like Swiss. Would you agree with that? I think a lot of players pretty much like just playing. Like, it could be exhausting. I think that's the downside of it, but I mean that's part of the fun of it too.
Of course, it's a lot of fun. I mean, even if you're eliminated early, then you can still play all your remaining rounds, have some fun. I mean, better than doing nothing all day, right? Just wallowing in your hotel room or whatever. Why do that when you can just have fun playing some more Hearthstone?
It's true. I mean, it's the first day of the event, so if you're done playing, you travel all the way to Spain, and then you lose in the first couple hours, and you just don't really know what to do for the rest of the weekend when you've booked it already. Because, of course, you have to book optimistically. You don't book just one day anticipating losing the first day.
Yeah.
I've been talking to some people about the metagame, and I know a lot of people always want more content, which is obviously what everyone wants. Like, I would love if we got balance patches. I would love if we got additional cards, etc. But, you know, examining everything now, do you think that there's still innovation left in the current meta game here? Do you think there's things that we can still do that hasn't been explored with what Whispers of the Old Gods brought?
Highly unlikely. I mean, this is what I predicted from the start when Standard was announced. Sure, the immediate impact that Standard had when it was introduced, obviously it brought a lot of variety to Hearthstone and to the meta game. However, considering that the card pool is lower than in Wild, then the meta game will be figured out faster and will become more stale, and there's going to be fewer decks that are actually viable, which is what we see today.
No way. BS. You think we have less viable decks than we did, like, at the end of League of Explorers, at the end of Blackrock Mountain? No way, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
What?
Yeah.
There's no way. All right, what was the meta game like at the end of League of Explorers? It was Druid, Secret Paladin, and decks that kind of just beat those, like maybe the occasional Freeze Mage, right? That was kind of like, that was the 3 decks that we were
but
seeing.
you had tons of different decks that were actually all viable, and I mean, you still do, but
barely.
It's gonna be figured out. The more the meta game is getting figured out, and the more the strongest decks are getting figured out, the more those decks are shifting into the background.
Yeah.
Sure, they're still playable in the current meta game, but I mean, it's not like people are bringing those decks.
But I mean,
who's bringing Priest? Who's bringing Rogue? Who's bringing Paladin?
We see Rogues doing well, actually. I think the reason why people don't bring Rogue to tournaments because most people don't play Rogue very well.
I mean, the vast majority you will see is Shaman, Warlock, Warrior,
Druid. Yeah.
And then like some mages.
That's already 4 classes out of 9 that are viable, and then you do have viable mage decks, Tempo Mage and Freeze Mage, and you do have Rogue that's still in there in the mix. And Mid-Range Hunter is still like a pretty decent deck because Call of the Wild is bananas. You're going to sit here and tell me that 7 out of 9 classes that are viable for a tournament lineup is not a diverse meta.
I mean, viable, sure, but are they the best? That's the issue, right?
Because best means 1. There's only going to be 1 best.
Or 4 best. Like you have to pick
fine.
4. You have
There's
to pick
still
4,
but like
decks, right?
even if it's best, like at the end of League of Explorers, we had Druid, Secret Paladin, like Control Warrior, like Zoo Warlock, and that was all that infested the meta game right there.
Yeah, the main problem is basically that 4 strongest decks are that powerful that there's little possibilities to counter them with like different strategies that larger card pools will allow. But nowadays, with this card pool, you don't have that many possibilities, not that many options to counteract those strong decks. And Therefore, it's like
But
it is what it is.
there's variations of warrior like Dragon Warlock. There's Cthulhu Warrior. We even have Temple Warrior still mixed in there once in a while. Some Patron Warrior is still viable to a degree. Then you have the variations of
Sure, but
Warlock
this is all pretty much the same deck.
and variations of Shop. They're all pretty much the same decks.
Yeah, I mean, look
What?
at those warriors. Like you Patron, Tempo, Dragon. It's all the same.
Yeah, but they
Just-
play a lot of different cards, and so they have different flavors to them.
Yeah, I mean, if you
And
if you say
then
so.
then the Reno Warlock and Zoo Warlock are very different fundamentally. Well, I mean that's because Warlock's hero power is insane. It could do anything.
yeah, but Reno, who's playing Reno Lock nowadays?
there's a few
It's
people
a
playing.
only a couple.
The winner of the Europe Championship a few weeks ago played Reno Lock in his lineup, and the Reno Lock made it to the finals of Starlight last week. It's still a viable deck that got in in Congress. You have to win with every one of your decks. E-Cops would have had to win games.
Anyway, my point
Oh
is
man, we could be here debating all night about
my
this.
mind is set. Like you can advocate all you want for those
Oh
lower
my
tier
God.
decks.
Freeze Mage and Temple Mage are completely different. Okay, whatever.
I'm
done.
just sticking to the strongest decks and like try to win coin flips against other people bringing.
Isn't
the
that
strongest
could be
decks.
your problem, man? Maybe you should have just countered the
There's
meta.
no way to counter it.
That's what you think. That's. Oh, okay, yeah. Keep thinking that, and then
Yeah.
the better players can prey on that ideology.
All right, bro. Whatever you say.
Ekop, I love you, man. How's that life for you, man? What have you been up to besides, of course, attending events?
I'm still playing all the events as much as I can. There's a lot of stuff coming up as well. Seed Story Cup, of course, coming up next week, and I'm going to be attending that as well.
Awesome.
And yeah, I mean, I'm going to go to True Silver Championship as well, which is next month. I
Sick.
guess.
You qualify for the event?
No.
Or you were invited to the event?
I mean, no. There was like a qualifier for invited players,
Right.
but yeah, this I didn't manage to qualify there, and I'm still going to play in the Swiss portion.
Oh, okay.
Because there's going to be a Swiss portion and 8 players will participate with the 8 players that qualified, like the qualified from the invited
the
players.
pro qualifier. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, looks like we're out of time as we're about to start the Swiss round at number 4. Ecops. Maybe Ecop will join us and cast some matches. You can definitely hear his
hopefully.
analysis. Well, we'll see if we can squeeze it in there, depending on how the rotation works. Other than that, guys, when we come back, we're going to start Swiss round number 4 here. I believe the first match is Impact versus RDU. So that's going to be cool to see if our DreamHack Summer Champion can continue his streak and repeat here in Valencia. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be back in a sec.
Welcome back, everyone, to the beautiful Valencia, sunny Valencia, where we're sitting in a hangar playing Hearthstone and playing card games in general. With me, Subtle and Raven, and we have 4th round of Swiss. And who do we have playing against in the next round, Subtle?
We have a huge game coming up. We have, fresh off the back of DreamHack Summer, we have G2's RDU up against Impact. So that's a game that I'm personally looking forward to. We heard from Impact a little bit earlier, and obviously everyone knows all about RDU, so one of the biggest games potentially that we've had on stream so far.
Yeah, especially an Impact, even though might not be as well known as RDU. He's definitely known within the scene, known for a pretty good deck builder and just a strong player overall. So really excited to see this game.
Yeah, and RDU on the back of winning his last DreamHack appearance, right? He's trying to make another miracle win and be the first person to maybe win a 3rd DreamHack title. That would be kind of incredible. But he's sitting now, and so is Impact, at 2-1. So it's not looking the best yet. A lose here actually kind of diminishes the chances of getting into the top 16 by a huge margin.
Yeah, it's really damaging. I mean, you would be hugely unfavored to go through. Like, so many of the 7-2s are going to drop, and it will depend on, actual people dropping out of the tournament in terms of exactly how many 7-2s go through. But losing 2 games this early in what is a more savage than usual Swiss bracket is going to put you in bad shape for sure. So this is do or die for both these players, more or less.
Yep. Yeah, we were even saying earlier that although like going 0-2 is like you're out, that's done. But even losing 1 game this early just puts the pressure on, as we're talking about. Is like this game is pretty much a have to win if you've got any sort of reasonable chance to get through. Crazy things can happen with Swiss, as always, where like an awkward score or just your tiebreak might just be enough to get through.
Yeah.
But really, this is a game that these guys have to win if they want to have a really strong chance.
Yeah. But even if someone will lose, of course, here. He will still try hard, right, to get that 7-2, right? At least it's bragging rights, and maybe there's some miracle happening, and you will be still in the game, even though you lost 2 games in the first 4 rounds, right? Yeah. Maybe someone will drop out, and then you will be pushed up by one spot.
And
who knows?
And there's always just a chance that the players that you lost to actually end up having really high tie break, which then helps you. So unless you're definitely out, these players will stay until they're 100% sure they won't make it.
Definitely true. Last time I remember Impact being in a higher placement tournament, I think, was DreamHack Bucharest. And that was quite a long time ago. He was in the top 8, if I believe.
Katowice as well.
Katowice. Yes, right. You're correct. Can't remember his placement there, but he was in the...
I think he lost first round to Wonder.
Yes.
Oh, his first round. It was a huge qualification process to get to the top 8, but at the LAN, I think he lost his first game to AKA Wonder. I think. That's from memory. Don't quote me.
Correct. Well, from what I remember, Impact usually favors control decks over aggro decks, but he is from NA, so maybe that kind of pushes him in a direction of more aggro-based decks right now. What do you think he will bring to the table when it comes to the classes?
It's hard to say. I didn't. I know he was interviewed, but I didn't actually hear what he said. So I don't know if he was asked about his lineup during the interview.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Impact had a bit of a hand at least, or also was on the train of building the Dragon Warrior deck. So I expect him to to bring something like that. And he was actually saying that he's one of the players who's just like, you just bring the strongest decks to the general field, to the tournament.
Right. In that case, we know his lineup.
Zoo, Dragon Warrior, so on, and you just bring those lists. So I wouldn't expect anything too crazy from Impact. He's definitely a player who just thinks, these are the best lists, I play them better than anyone else, and that's how I'm going to win. Not going to try and bring any strange tech or any sort of different deck choices overall, anything that stands out too much. Doubt he's going to play Priest, for example. But yeah, he's definitely just one of the more standard deck list players.
Everyone got the chuckle, so that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got to get those
the
Priest
mere
jokes.
thought of playing Priest just amuses me. Priest is dead when Ness, who's come to this tournament, Insomnia winner, probably one of the 2 remaining Priest specialists along with Zetalot.
In the world.
Actual Priest purists. There are other people like Kalento and Gara who like Priest, but they're not just all in on Priest. Ness is one of those guys, much like Zetalot, and Ness has not brought Priest to this tournament. That's how miserable Priest is right now.
Well, Priest, I would say it's a class that is targeting a specific archetype if built correctly, right? And it
but
can
only
work.
one.
Yeah, it can work in current environment, but then you're rolling, you're going all in that you will get very favorable pairings every single time, and well, the odds are against you, right? In such a huge crowd, there will be people that will be bringing some really unexpected things, and then you will play something against you're not prepared, and your counter decks will be practically useless. Right? This is why you said yourself that the winning strategy usually is just sticking to the best decks in the metagame.
Well, yeah, and I think in Prix specifically, when you look at this format, and then as you were saying, like you're against such a wide field that like there can be sort of more sort of random decks and things you're not used to. And when you're playing against those decks with Priest at the moment, it's even worse, right? Because you're not playing a solid deck. You're playing a deck that you're confident with and you think can snatch a few wins, but not an all-rounder sort of solid deck in general. So when you do hit those speed bumps, it's like it's just that extra little bit worse, and that just little bit is the is the difference between winning and losing in Swiss. And as we can say, like everything leads to like matches like this where you just have to win if you want to continue. And a Priest is definitely just liability, sort of similar to Paladin, maybe to a slightly lesser extent, but
I definitely don't think there's anything wrong with like bringing something unique and surprising in this tournament. When I did an interview with Orange, we were discussing this point of like, you can bring the solid, consistent stuff, and they'll give you a solid, consistent performance. And if you're a very good player, you can expect to pilot that to top 16 with a decent consistency because of Swiss. Yeah. If you want to make that extra push and actually go and win the event, then suddenly you enter into like RDU territory where you have to bring that Meta Crusher deck with you as well to give you that extra
and we saw that from Purple as well when he won with the Malygos like Dragon Warlock.
The thing is,
everyone wants to play that.
I don't think that Meta Crusher deck is ever going to be Priest. That's the problem.
Exactly.
So,
Well, when you think you mentioned RDU's lineup, right, last time, and he was just playing an aggressive deck with just 2 Flame Strike, basically.
Yes.
Right. Anyway, it seems like the game will be underway. So take it away, guys.
Thanks, buddy. So we have Impact on the Druid, G2's RDU on the Zoo, has that Crazed Alchemist tech for a little bit of anti-Doomsayer stuff, a little bit of anti-Shaman stuff. But I would expect, based on what you told me about what Impact said about wanting to bring the strong stuff, that despite this hand not being overly indicative of anything, this is going to be the Yogg Druid that we're looking at. Yeah,
and then just looking at RDU's class lineup, could probably guess the archetypes. With like with the 4 decks there, but that looked pretty interesting as we just see the Druid draw there as the screens are just going to change over in a second. But RDU bringing Zoo, not too much of a surprise at all. One of the more known Zoo players in general.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to him a little bit yesterday before the event started about Zoo, and he really feels like he has Zoo pretty much locked down at this point. It's been a deck that's been around for so long. It took him a while to adapt to some of the new cards and some of the positional things that they introduced and all that kind of stuff. But now that he's had enough experience with this deck in Standard, he feels like he's right back on top of his Zoo game. And Zoo is a deck where it's forgiving for new players. You can play it, reasonably averagely and still get decent results. But it's a deck that a lot of pros actually like playing because it offers those rewards where you can keep getting better and better and better at it, and your win rate just increases by those small percentage points. And that's where RDU feels like he is with this deck, where he can just edge out other players by just being better at Zoo than them.
Yeah, there are so many little intricacies that actually just, as you said, just give you the edges. Yeah. And if you're confident enough, and RDU won Insomnia, not last Insomnia, the one before, on the back of his Zoo deck as well. So he's feeling pretty confident overall. But Impact actually having all the ramp he could ever want in life as a Druid. Just going there with the double wild growth. He had the Wrath to clear up the juggler there. So not off to a terrible start, but I imagine he's going to be heavily dependent on this Nourish doing some work with the card draw.
Exactly. I mean, lots of mana is fantastic, but it doesn't get you anywhere unless you have stuff to spend that mana on. So he's probably going to have to take another slow turn here unless he gets a really nice draw this turn. It's going to have to be Nourish for card draw to be able to climb back on the board. And, well, not quite enough mana to get the party started. He would have loved to play both of those, but with the option just between the 2 of them, definitely like the Nourish. Then he can try and leverage a Fandral hand next turn using the Innovate, and that is some nice cards to jam out with Fandral next turn.
Yeah, and you can tell it straight away against Zoo, a deck you normally try and slow down, holding off on the Living Roots because he wants the Fandral value of the 2 damage and the tokens. Same with Wrath and so on and so on, but he didn't get a swipe, which would have actually been really clean for the following turn, and then allowing more mana going forward to then do an even bigger Fandral sort of blowout turn against Zoo.
Right, but from Radu's perspective here, he's looking at that card draw turn and thinking, all right, decent odds to have a swipe in his hand by now, right? So the turn of Gormok Face, which just looks pretty appealing here, is a little bit exposed to the swipe line. So he's going to go for the Councilman instead. And since this is a 7-mana turn, it would be pretty difficult for that Councilman to get cleared. There'd have to be a combination of 2 cards, swipe plus something else, because swipe Hero Power could not get through the Voidwalker.
Yeah. Now Impact does have the option to play Emperor for like a potentially even more impactful Fandral turn later, the potential like next turn, for example. But we're against Zoo. You know, you can't really. You know, he already sort of threw away a turn a little bit in form of the Nourish, not putting anything on the board. So now he's actually just going to get this Fandral going and basically provide RDU with a taunt target as well, as you cannot leave that card on the board as almost any class or deck.
Yeah, but this is just the most miserable feeling against Zoo. Whenever you play a big threat like this against a board that has the tentacle tokens on it, or a Squire, or an Imp, or any 1/1, it's like, all right, buddy, do you have power overwhelming? And the answer for RDU is emphatically yes. On top of that, he could even just choose to use Gormok instead. Like, he has all the options in the world to kill this Fandral while still netting tempo, which is the important thing.
Yeah, I was just looking at the potential of actually just going like Juggler, Peddler, Power Overwhelming. It fills the mana out. And the odds on, like, because, you've still got the Voidwalker up, you can clear off the 1/1s as well. And the odds on those 2 minions surviving are pretty high, generally, so then you can sort of try and cash in the Gormok next turn. But we'll see what he chooses to do. It does look like he's hovering over the Juggler. Just fills out your curve really, really nicely there. And, like, feels like you're not wasting Gormok, because this would be, like, Gormok face or something where it's like, yeah, it's 4 damage, but you'd probably rather be able to take down something like a Druid of the Claw, or, like, assist with taking down one of those big minions that Druid normally drops.
Oh, baby. I don't mind the Soulfire here. I was going to ask about the Seeker, but I wouldn't want my whole hand dependent on not getting swiped next turn. Like, you tested for swipe last turn to an extent and didn't see it, so there's probably no swipe in the hand, but I still wouldn't want my entire hand to be destroyed by a top deck swipe, for example. So taking the Soulfire does seem pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah, just a good option as opposed to a situational option, as you said, especially with the Gormok in hand. But it's going to be Impact going with the Emperor. Just as, Emperor doesn't do too much in terms of the reduction. A 0 mana spell is actually always good. Any sort of 0 mana card you can just whip in no matter what. But, just the reducing the Druid of the Claw, there has to be something quite special come out of the Raven Idol to really make an impact here. But as we can see, Impact's board not really changed from last turn, and now we're going to get the Gormok value as and when. Yeah. And he still has all the tokens he can want to just clear up the board.
Yeah, Knife Juggler sequencing relatively unimportant here. Pretty much all targets are fine, so he's just trading the board as he sees it. Had to trade off a minion before he can develop further here, but yeah, now that the 1 knife has gone to the 3/3, these targets are pretty much even at this point. Face is not where he wants the knives to go, but still, empty hand, 1 mana left for Soulfire. This seems pretty good. RDU is in an extremely comfortable spot here, and Druid just hasn't been able to get anything going. Like, there was all that early ramp, but there was just nothing really to convert it into board presence quickly enough. Yeah. He spent 3 entire turns ramping and drawing cards, essentially, and by that point, Zoo already had a board, which combined with all the buffs and combat tricks that they play, was just enough leverage to beat anything that he could throw at it. Yeah, and we even saw then last turn one of like the small intricacies of playing Zoo. RDU threw away the 2 tokens instead of the Peddler, because normally you want multiple minions to be able to do multiple trades, but then you're weaker to swipe. Right. So he just traded the 2 1/1s instead. Swipe doesn't do too much versus my board in this case. And then as we can see, now he just has a stronger board overall because the swipe was drawn from the Raven Idol. But yeah, like in this matchup, really, as the Druid, you just want the Violet Teacher to generate a lot of tokens, power the Wild, and be like, my board's now bigger than yours, Zoo. What are you going to do? Yeah, Wild Growth is good if you have a 4-drop in your hand already. Wild Growth into Fandral, Wild Growth into Violet Teacher are usually pretty good, but outside of that, you kind of just want Innovates and 4-drops and Druid of the Claws and just go from there and then leverage a swipe at some point. That's generally how you win, but RDU drawing a Peddler on this turn was pretty much the dream. It's one of the best cards you can draw when your hand is empty outside of like Doomguard. Yeah. Because it just gives you so many resources to put on the board, especially when he had that Knife Juggler in play, so he was able to get multiple procs out of the knife. But get him! That is Yogg-Saron, so we're going to see what happens now, as this is pretty much like an Impact nodding. He's like, yeah, this is the card that can actually pull this game back in my favor. Smite's face, Fireball's a 2/1, not what he's looking for. Powered Shield, again, not great, but
Nice to draw, though.
It's nice to draw, but the point is with Yogg is like all of this stuff is great, but what really matters is things like that. Demon Wrath, slightly less impactful because of the demons on the board, but you kind of want the AoEs. Like all of this stuff is nice and pretty, but it's like, do I cast Flame Strike? Do I cast Twisting Nether? That's kind of what I care about here.
Yeah, and he's doing a pretty good job so far. Even the generating the additional Yogg means, at worst case, he can just do it again next turn.
Yep.
He has Eye for an Eye up, just so you are aware of the secret that got pulled there. So if this Doomguard goes face, I imagine RDU will play around that secret, as it benefits to be able to play around with the Voidwalker, whether it's Noble Sacrifice or Eye for an Eye. So there's no reason not to do this attack in this order. I expect nothing less from RDU.
So
but it's not enough to actually kill him this turn, so...
It isn't, but with a second Yogg in hand, this is just a solid play. Put your opponent to 3, because now any spell that gets targeted at his own face with Yogg-Saron is going to potentially end the game. And there you can see, it's Impact choosing to just take the double 5-drop play, which is pretty solid at this point, honestly. Yeah,
I think the drawing the Druid of the Claw was actually key there, because that just made, he could have gone, okay, as your Drake, I have Raven Idol to do something from there, but then it's like, oh, Druid of the Claw, great, this is just an easy turn.
And now, as RDU, every single time you press that life tap button, you're going to have a sharp intake of breath, because there are 3 ambushes sat in there. So every time you're dicing with death when you press that button, but you have to do it. You need to keep drawing resources.
Yeah, and Impact continuing to draw exactly what he needs at this point. The Ancient of War is pretty huge here. Has just put up a massive taunt wall. Even Mark of Nature helps, but Swipe just to clear up the minions. You keep a Zoo player with no board, and that's how you generally win the game.
You still taunt this turn, because there's 3 health minions. So, like, you have Spell Power Swipe, that's great, but like it doesn't actually do anything to this board, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, for continuing forward,
sure,
like, you pick the Swipe over the Mark of Nature because you have the taunt wall, right? And, Counterman not going to be enough, and Impact taking the game off RDU with the Yogg Druid, and we see, although not off to the best start, the raw power of that deck.
Sorry, this shot right here is the definition of Yogg. Look how happy one player is, look how miserable the other guy is.
That is the sign of good card design.
Yeah, RDU, especially not the biggest fan of these types of mechanics in the game as it is. Definitely not going to be too happy with that one, because he had that almost wrapped up. The only thing Impact would have potentially been looking for is something like a Feral Raise to just gain the armor and push himself out of, say, like a Soulfire.
So here's the thing. When, jokes aside, obviously, like, Yogg is easy to poke fun at, but you can kind of depend on Yogg with relative consistency to clear most of the board, maybe play a secret, draw a couple of cards. That's kind of what it does almost all the time. So if that had happened without all the absurd stuff, without like the Beneath the Grounds going into the deck, which didn't actually have an impact, would that have been good enough to win the game? Because the second Yogg didn't get played, the Beneath the Grounds didn't happen. All that happened that impacted the game is that he cleared the board. And that's, you're playing a 10-mana card to clear the board. That's what it's there for.
And even, to be fair, like, the secrets are normally really impactful.
Yeah, who cares? It was 2 damage.
But like, 2 damage didn't change the outcome of that game.
Right.
It didn't really do too much. But we are into the next game, as RDU has locked in his Shaman, and off to a pretty reasonable opening start, has got the new Shaman portrait unlocked, which is always a bonus, in my opinion.
It is. I mean, I am not a huge fan of role-player portraits, but that's a Murloc. I mean,
exactly.
Come on.
Sold.
Yeah, give me 5.
So another sort of card in a lot of discussion at the moment. The Tuskar Totemic does get coined out, and only a healing totem. So RDU got to be feeling pretty upset with that one. You definitely want to get the you definitely want to get one of the big 3, I'll call them, out of that guy. Is that alone can really push this matchup.
Certainly can, but he still has development for days here, and I mean, a 4-mana 7/7 is pretty effective against a lot of decks, but against Druid in particular, you're kind of like, they have a one-of mulch most of the time. That's about it in terms of being able to interact with a 4-mana 7/7. So you deliberately here see RDU taking a weaker line this turn just to make sure he has a power play on the following turn.
Yeah, and also, he does have Thing from Below in hand, so the hero power helps with that. He has, if something crazy were to happen, he has Feral Spirit as well to then go into it if he really needed it. So, which would then buff the Tunnel Trog. So not a terrible turn whatsoever, and not maybe the natural play, but as you said, the 7/7 just too strong, buffs the Tunnel Trog, allows him to start trading into the 2/2 there, clear it up. And now this is a hell of a board, as you said, for Impact to actually try and deal with, because there's just no good way. Like, he can charge the Druid of the Claw and trade in, and he might just have to just to get it off the board, but then the Trog's still alive to continue pushing more damage.
Yeah, I mean, this card is extremely oppressive when it comes down on turn 4 against certain classes, and he is in the end just forced to double trade into it, which is completely miserable. Now RDU just has all the initiative to dig away here, and now these overload cards that he chose not to play in order to power out the 7/7, now they come into play to just increase that oppression of the Tunnel Trog beating away at face.
Yeah, and look at RDU's hand. He pretty much has everything he needs to win the game.
Yeah.
At this point, he has a huge board. The Trog's now healed back to full at 5 attack. He has Lava Burst, Flame Tongue Totem, Horse Rider in hand, and the thing from below is just like a 5/5 at this point. But he doesn't even care about the taunt at the moment. So like, he has all the cards necessary to really pressure Impact, and it's going to be on Impact himself to actually try and fend this off and make something of it towards the late game.
You mentioned early on that RDU wasn't going to be too happy with that healing totem he got. It's doing some work right now.
It's pretty good versus Swipe.
Yep. But yeah, 5/5 comes down, so he's just going to be trying to push through damage here, but he is going to run into a 5/10 taunt this turn, almost certainly. There's just no other appealing line in Impact's hand. He's got to try and wall out some of this damage. But now, okay, all right, sure.
Who cares about 10 health?
Yeah, when one Flame Tongue isn't enough, you just draw a second one alongside your Abusive Sergeant.
I was going to say, when one Flame Tongue, Abusive Sergeant, Lava Burst, and Horse Rider are not enough instant damage, you draw another one.
So what actually is the positioning here? You could make one totem do 6. You could also make your Horse Rider do 6 as well, because you couldn't play the Abusive as well. So
do you actually just like double Flame Tongue on the minions that aren't the thing from below, and just thing from below Lava Burst to kill the 5/10? So then you're just spreading your damage so wide. You've already seen a swipe.
So you'd put a Flame Tongue like 3rd from the right and 5th from the right.
Yeah.
And then Lava Burst.
Yeah.
Sure, I can see that.
Because then, like, you're spreading your damage so wide, and then you've already seen a swipe, and obviously with this kind of health, with the 3 health on the 2 totems, the Flame Tongues.
You can just use a Horse Rider instead, though, right? If you trade, trade this totem and then just jam Horse Rider in the middle where it came off, then that's better, because then you just have the Lava. It's not like it's not like there's Lopeb in the game to play around anymore, where you have to invest your spell damage first. So
yeah, and to be fair, if like a huge board clear and a taunt come down, you have Lava Burst.
So
that's true.
Them in the face.
Yeah. There were many options to go for with you have that much sort of instant buff damage, but a pretty straight up game there as RDU just steamrolled Impact, and there wasn't really a lot he could do at that rate.
Yeah, that was an angry game from RDU. That was all right. I've had enough of this Yogg Druid. Let's just quickly get rid of this with an aggro shaman game, and we'll progress from the series from here. But Impact is down to 1-1. This is kind of how one of the formats that Last Hero Standing can go, where it's just trading back and forth wins with counter picks, and it's whoever breaks that pattern that's going to come out ahead in the series, and that's generally why you want your decks to be not just one-trick ponies. It's what we were talking about with Priest. Like, sure, you can Q-snipe your Priest against the one deck that you built it to beat, but then it's just going to lose the next game, and you've net exactly nothing. So this is going to be about who can like put back-to-back wins together from this point.
Yeah, and I imagine, obviously I don't know Impact's deck lists, but I imagine this is exactly why he's chosen Zoo, because Zoo has the the probably least worst matchup against this deck. It has a decent matchup. I don't think it's super favored, but I think it's good. And also, you don't want to lose the mirror game, the mirror match, right? If they're both like aggro chains, because if you lose that, then you're in a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, you have a mirror or close to a mirror since your other deck is Shaman, so it's just a simple question, really, of is Zoo better than 50-50 against Shaman? And like, people disagree on exactly how favored it is, but I think we're all going to agree it's favored. Yeah. So yeah, Zoo makes sense here for sure. Squire into Flame Tongue is one of the strongest starts possible for the aggro shaman, though. It's one of the ways you can actually contest the board early, but Abusive Sergeant is able to take care of that pretty nicely.
Yeah. Wonder whether he's going to go Forbidden Ritual for 1 just to have the extra token on board, as the next couple of turns are pretty much used up. There's a chance he could play Count Summon and Forbidden on turn 4 just to gain a +1 additional token later.
But then it's the same thing, right?
But yeah, exactly. So because you gain the damage earlier. So I like this just to put the extra minion on the board, as you really do just want to reduce the early minion pressure from the Shaman here.
Yeah, I like the Forbidden cards. I think they're a cool addition to the game. It's similar to Discover in a sense, where it's like you have to know how to use it to adapt to the current state of the game. you know, just very, very different mechanics, but Discover is all about picking the right option for the right situation. That's exactly what the Forbidden cards are. You need to pick the right mana number to use it on. You can manipulate that by using other stuff in your hand or your hero power, etc. So I think they're like a skillful card, a card with a high skill cap, which is something that I'm always happy to see being printed into the game.
Yeah, when they first started getting it released, actually, I presumed there would be Forbidden card for every class.
It was looking that way for a while, right?
And I was like, where's Forbidden Hunter? Deal X damage to face based on how much money you've got. So it's all I wanted from life, and they let me down. But
you just stall the game until turn 10 and then just double Pyroblast them with one card. That's
you can't. It uses your mana.
That's what I mean. But like,
two turns.
Yeah.
Seems good.
Right.
That combined with, goes with the theme with the hero power, right?
Or do you want to take the Paladin route where just the one card is double the amount of mana you spend?
I mean, I'd be okay with it.
Sure.
I'd be okay with it.
Anything that makes Hunter OP will make you happy, right?
Triple, why not? What a literal OTK. But getting back to the game, the Flame Wreath Faceless is on the board, but one of the benefits Zoo has versus this kind of card is that it just outnumbers the Flame Wreath. Flame Wreath, a lot of time you might get in a position with Shane where you need to trade, but all those stats can only go into one minion. So, going wide is definitely a really good strategy.
I mean, they can only go to one place. It doesn't have to be a minion, but the fact that one of the minions
if
is
you
a council.
trade in.
But, I mean, it's like, serious point. There's a 7/7 on the board. There's a Doomhammer. There's a Rockbiter. There's a Lightning Bolt. So, RDU here will consider, okay, I'm at 26. I can hit him down to 18. Next turn I have 10 with Doomhammer, Rockbiter. And then next turn he's dead. So, like, can I race that from here? The answer to that question is quite simply no. You are going to die. Your opponent has the clock on you, so he does have to respect the trade.
And also there's a huge consideration towards Defender Argus, because that suddenly proves everything.
Yeah.
To a large extent, because he couldn't cash in like the Doomhammer Rockbiter, because you see a lot of players, if they have Doomhammer Rockbiter and they believe the race is on, they will just use it as soon as there's no taunt there, just to get the damage in.
Well, he could have done
be
that
done
next
with
turn.
it.
He could have done that next turn. But yeah, he went for the ball control line, and this is pretty solid, but it runs into the empty hand Soulfire here from Impact. That would be the one thing that RDU definitely wouldn't have wanted to see, but against most worlds, he was pretty dominant on the board at the end of that turn, which when you have a Doomhammer to back up being ahead on board against Zoo, that's really powerful, because you can just start taking out their minions every turn.
Yeah, generally the valid strategy versus Zoo is to just empty the board, because it's the only way they win, unless you're on extremely low health anyway. But RDU's sitting on 25, so still feeling pretty comfortable. You can still use the Doomhammer if he wants to help trade away some of these minions. Or he can go for the Tuskar Totemic into hero power, and it's all on the idea of like equipping Doomhammer now. It just feels naturally good just to get it equipped. You can start using those the charges, but
it's just not a good Doomhammer, is it?
Yeah, that's the problem with how the board looks. It's like so resilient. There's like the imp alone. It's like, okay, I'll die to Doomhammer pretty cleanly, and that's it. But RDU chooses to completely disregard everything and just say, you know what's pretty good as well? Doomhammer face.
Yeah, but with the Rockbiter down, and now there is a Sea Giant to race with, so that is a big deal. Didn't have to life tap to put intense pressure on the board here. He's just going to maximize his board presence. Trades away the Squire, which is an interesting decision because so the difference between Squire and Possessed Villager, they're fairly similar cards, is that Squire is stronger with Defender of Argus. Possessed Villager has a little bit of synergy with Darkshire Councilman and Power Overwhelming as well. Yeah. But Argus is a pretty important card right now if you were to draw it. So I'd quite like having that Divine Shield stuck around.
Yeah, I agree actually, because like as you said, the Possessed Villager, when it gets traded into, well, the 1/1 isn't taunted anymore, whereas the trade into
and only
the Squire,
one hit is taunted, and the second hit is into a 1/1 and not a 2/2.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I do agree, but I guess like Impact's just thinking, if he trades at all, I'm good.
Sure.
Like I'm gonna win. I have a Sea Giant. Like if he does any trading, I'm happy with this. So just doesn't really care too much about the outcome anyway.
There's only 13 in play here right now for Impact, so RDU doesn't have to respect him drawing 8 damage. It's possible. 8 damage from 2 cards is a thing that Zoo can do, but they shouldn't, right? Statistically, it's not a thing that should happen. They shouldn't draw 8 damage most of the time, so RDU does have a decision to make here, but if he goes ahead and puts his opponent down to 11, what one card can he draw that wins him the game? Nothing.
Exactly.
So
The choices like this are like make or break in a matchup, because RDU is only drawing 1 card a turn, But on the other hand, if Impact wants to, cash in on the extra draw that Warlock has, he has to lower his life, which is fine. But then they have more cards to deal with, more chance of drawing cards like Argus, Power Overwhelming, Doomguard, cards that are really going to end the game. So it's really close. Although the health, there's 7 difference, obviously Doomhammer equipped, but it's exceptionally close. And literally one card draw from either of these players could change everything.
Yeah, so what RDU did here is actually a really intelligent play where he made a halfway play, which means the 8/8 has to go into a minion here in order to clear the board. He can choose to leave the Flame Tongue totem up if he wants and then send the 8/8 face, but it means there's a minion still on board. And then suddenly, if he forces the 8/8 to trade, which Impact isn't going to take, he's just going to disrespect and go face to set up his own lethal. Then if he was to force him to send the 8/8 into a minion, then potentially he then has another turn on his clock that he can use to find lethal. Another thing that can potentially do that is, of course, Feral Spirits, which is a great draw for him.
Yeah, so at this point, he can do 5, he can do 9. So if you're RDU, you can actually just go face at this point, right? 2, 3.
2, 3.
It's going to be 1 minion. You take potentially 8 if there's just 1 single minion played that isn't charged.
No, you don't. There's a Taunt Totem as well.
Oh, of course. I did. The speech bubble distracted me
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
Murloc.
Yeah,
what was that saying?
I mean, that Taunt
Yeah,
Totem
that's actually
really
huge.
does open up the face
go
play.
face, yeah. There's literally Argus that causes problems here because you put them to 4 and have 2 charges left with the Doomhammer.
Yep. I mean, Voidwalker too, but
yeah.
sure.
There are a few cards in the deck that can cause this, so this is all going to rely on Impact's draw now. As you said, that totem actually opened everything up because there's just too many targets for him to try and take down.
Yeah, it means a bare minimum. Just again, I made this point in the previous series. It's all about thinking in terms of number of attacks for Zoo. That's the important thing. How many different attacks can they make? Because the more different attacks they can make, the more prepared they are to split up damage. Peddler is a potentially huge draw here. It can pick him up a lot of damage buffs, which can change the equation. But the fact that he has to send 3 attacks minimum into those taunts means that there just isn't that much damage able to be rationed to center face.
Yeah, is there anything you can get from Peddler that changes this?
I mean, the knife,
none of those.
The knife could have helped out too. So if he got abusive and that knife went where it went, then he could have abusive, taken out 1 for 3, taken out 1, and then he was still have been 1 damage off lethal. Awkward.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that even keeps him alive at this point because of the Doomhammer? There's no taunts, so
nope.
This is going to be a game. Impact's just going to go through the motions of thinking about any sort of outcome, but pretty straightforward when you don't taunt up and they have a weapon. Not a lot you can do to stop them going to face.
High-profile tournament game like this, like a board state like that, you're just going to count the attacks every single possible way. So I'm not missing something here, right? There's no way that I can push through lethal. No, there was not, which means that RDU was able to take down what most people say is a very unfavored matchup. I personally only think it's slightly favored towards the Zoo because, if you're an intelligent aggro shaman player, rip chat, I'm sure that they've just suddenly gone crazy because I said the word.
Are you saying you don't just smoke?
Apparently not. But
everything I thought was true.
If you're an intelligent aggro shaman player, you can leverage situations like that where the key turn was that 50-50, the halfway turn that RDU made where he's like, okay, I can't set up lethal just by going face, so I'm going to take 1 minion off your board, and then suddenly that leaves you in an awkward spot about how to set up lethal yourself.
Yeah. Really strong decision making overall from RDU, and we are going into what could be the last game if RDU continues to power through this set with his Shaman, but it is going to be against Impact in the mirror match here. So it'll be interesting to see. We don't know Impact's list. We've not seen it. At the moment, it looks pretty aggressive to me. But it doesn't look too much like the mid-range variant. But
should we switch roles for this game? I'll say Shaman and you say Shaman.
I don't know if I because then there'll be video proof that I say it, and I'm sure that'll be
vice versa.
Yeah,
as well.
but it'll be used against me at some point.
All
so
right, fine.
no, I'm not going to give in to that. Never.
Fine. Shaman Master Race.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't pander to Twitch chat. So.
Panda? What? There's no Brewmaster. What's going on?
Anyway.
Yeah. So the curve has definitely played out towards Impact here. Tuskar Totemic is going to have an impact on this game as it often does. Flame Tongue Totem coming out, one of the big 3 or the power 3 or whatever you called them earlier on. Definitely one of the ones you're looking for when you have a board. If it's just Tuskar on an empty board, you're Manatide, Totem Golem. Like those are the 2.
Yeah.
Like Flame Tongue, often not that relevant. Still a high priority target your opponent has to deal with at some point.
It kind of becomes like a bigger taunt totem, right? A lot of the time on that turn.
Right.
And also nice pun with it having an impact on the board.
Yes.
I liked it. Good work.
We've done that like 5 times, by
I know.
the way. You just haven't noticed. Okay, sure.
I just wanted to, I appreciate that one specifically.
That does not feel good. Coining out a 7/7 that can just get traded down by a Flame Tongue Totem. That is not a good feeling at all.
Yeah, that's actually pretty horrible. I mean, they were to be fair, they were very limited choices, and RDU would have felt that if he went any slower, it would have continued to spiral out of control. He needs to make something big enough that then slows Impact down by, forcing him to trade, because Impact's got the choices whether he wants to trade or not, but it's very difficult not to want to here.
Finley over Totem when he has a Flame Tongue Totem on the board, and presumably he has Thing from Below in his deck as well, is an interesting
you would imagine
decision.
so.
Because, Totems are great. As long as you have that Flame Tongue Totem there, Totems are great things to have.
But what this does is being able to Finley, and because he got the Mage Hero power, the 1/3 combined with the Hero power lets you just leverage the board control even more. And that's often where this mirror is decided. Who gets the board early, who holds it, and as soon as you hold it for a turn or so, you generally just win. So, Impact deciding to just go with that route, and to be honest, it seems to be working out as just the additional minion, being able to be played, the ping to just chip off the extra damage. It's looking okay, and you know what that helps? A 7/7.
Also good, yeah. Definitely no disputes about the power of a 4-mana 7/7, and yeah, this has just been one of those games. This is something that I think Crane alluded to during his winners interview, something that I spoke with him about before the tournament as well, where it's just like, not necessarily like aggro decks are easier to play. I think that's a meme that gets thrown around that's just kind of nonsense. But with control mirrors, you get time to like break who gets the better start.
Yeah.
There's more time to develop and come back into the game. Whereas if you're playing aggro against aggro, it just seems like whoever curves out better wins a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think like the Shaman Mirror specifically is like the highest point in that.
Sure.
There are not many decks that are that brutal in the opening turns.
Right. And so, Raven, this is a mage deck that is not tempo mage.
Yeah, and so this is a freeze mage from
It is.
RDU. I was aware he was playing this deck.
Yeah.
And to be honest, this just speaks out as to the style of player RDU is. He brings what he believes are the best decks to tournaments.
Yep.
He doesn't particularly have favorites, actually. Like, could you even, like, Zoo is probably the favorite, the RDU
It's the closest
deck,
thing that he
but,
has to
but
like a
Zoo's
signature
always
deck,
been good.
Yep.
So, RDU is not one to take sort of a lesser deck to a tournament. He's literally, I'm going to play what I think is best. And to be honest, DreamHack Summit, he said, I think I've called the tournament meta really well. It worked. You can't really argue with that. It went really well, and now he thinks he's done it again, and he thinks Freeze Mage is the way to go. We saw earlier Prokrovac go, perform really well with his Freeze Mage,
Yep.
And he's also a very intelligent player. So, there's definitely something behind this pick in this tournament specifically.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I've already seen more Freeze Mage than I was expecting to in this tournament. I just, not only
Is that one?
Right, yeah, not only do I not think Freeze Mage is particularly well positioned right now in general, I just don't like it as a last hero standing deck, particularly because it's one of those one-win decks, right?
Yeah.
Like
you snipe and then you get sniped.
Pretty often, because Freeze Mage matchups are pretty polarized, like they'll have 2 Freeze Mage counters in their lineup, so even if you ban one of them, it's still only going to pick up one win and then they're going to counter you. But I spoke to RDU about this a little bit, and he said that as long as people bring mid-range Shaman instead of aggro Shaman, which is what he's expecting them to do, then Freeze Mage is really good against the meta. In which case, unfortunately, he's up against an aggro Shaman and not a mid-range Shaman here.
Yeah, and I think from what I've speaking to other players, we've heard a lot of this where, although everyone's been playing the mid-range variant recently, it feels like this tournament everyone's gone out for aggro. Just take the most aggressive decks, and then Yogg Druid is the expected lineup.
We've seen some mid-range on stream, though, I think, right?
Yeah. I think we've seen one, but then we've seen
and I think,
2 or 3 aggro.
I think a certain person who was trying not to give things away about what his opponent played was alluding to a mid-range Shaman deck as well. So
I have no idea what you're talking about. So.
Yeah, there's definitely some mid-range in the tournament.
I have no doubt there is.
But I would expect aggro to be the dominant form of Shaman, in which case, RDU's read is not quite as on point this time because, he said to me, I think people will bring mid-range. So if it doesn't work out like that, then this is kind of that high-risk strategy that we talked about, where sometimes you do have to put yourself out there to go all the way and to win tournaments like RDU has in the past and very recently, sometimes you have to make this risky meta call, and sometimes it falls a little bit flat. But let's not count him out yet. This is not an unwinnable matchup. It's a rough matchup for sure, but it can definitely be done. But he missed early Doomsayer, which is really one of the crucial things that you'd love to have.
Yeah, I think something to bear in mind as well is, DreamHack Summer wasn't too long ago. It was a few weeks ago, and RDU took Tempo Mage, so must have practiced a hell of a lot with it. When did he decide to bring Freeze to this one? And how much time has he actually had to like renew himself on this deck? Because he prepares a lot. He practices a hell of a lot, but there's literally just been a couple of weeks between the tournaments, so you actually just don't have
so many hours in a day. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if that's going to affect him or not. But he is doing pretty well so far in the tournament, and like I said, this is not an unwinnable matchup. It's just definitely one of the tougher ones.
Yeah, and he's had a little bit of respite. It's kind of hard to say that turn 3 Feral Spirits is respite, but it's going to save him from the turn 4 7/7, which is a terror against Freeze Mage most of the time, because Impact had a choice basically between Feral Spirits or nothing on that turn, in which case, of course, you have to develop the minions, but he's going to be a little bit upset at being locked out of that big play on the next turn.
Yeah, he has a few options here. He could actually use some of his burn effectively to just trade off some of the minions and then work towards the Blizzard and then try and hold the Frost Nova for a Doomsayer turn. Or he can like Frost Nova this turn or plan for Frost Nova next turn and then go into Blizzard and slow down. Especially now with a Flame Strike, he has multiple turns of AoE to slow this right down. See Impact with the Lightning Storm as well in this deck.
Yeah, he's teched in the Storm. Hasn't really drawn it in either of the matchups that it would have been kind of nice in, and he's picked it up now against Freeze Mage. It'll be a little bit of a dead card. If anything, it might just be used to push extra damage with a Tunnel Trog at some point. But RDU choosing to go with Arcane Intellect on the previous turn instead of any removal play or Ice Barrier play, and this is a key point with Freeze Mage, is that you want to try and make progress every turn. You want to feel like you've achieved something. So he could have played Ice Barrier that turn, and then 8 damage would have come straight back at him, and basically, like, it's just a Time Warp turn, right? Like, nothing's happened. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you might feel that's good as the Freeze Mage player because a turn's passed where you're not any closer to dying than you were. But if you haven't progressed forwards towards an eventual game plan of winning the game, if you hadn't started setting up your clock, if you're not already progressing towards, a turn 9, for example, then you've kind of just wasted your turn. So RDU realizes he's going to need more resources to win this game and just chooses to Arcane Intellect because the board is only going to get bigger and more scary from here on out.
And there's an example now where a potential turn could have actually just been Frost Nova and then Frostbolt Face to stop a Doomhammer, and then that buys you time, but also rolls straight into your turn 6 and turn 7 AoEs. So although you don't do damage, you actually just lock out all damage for multiple turns, and then by then you've already got a lot of burn, then you just draw into the burn and then just hopefully finish the game. Because one thing you can do by just stalling is wait for the Alex Strauser turn, and then suddenly the Shaman is just dead in 2 turns.
I'm not sure if you can Frostbolt Face when you have both Ice Lances in hand, though, is my issue.
That is actually a lot of damage.
Yeah, you have double Torch, Frostbolt, double Ice Lance in your hand, so you can suddenly win out of nowhere. So I like RDU's plan here, which is just hoard cards while you can, when it's safe to do so. So last turn he wasn't taking too much damage, he just cast Arcane Intellect, and by delaying the Ice Barrier 1 turn, he's now been able to fit in that Novice Engineer, and all that card draw that he picked up has now got him to Frost Nova Doomsayer combination. Yeah,
and the Ice Barrier made him break even that turn as well with the damage that was available.
But what's important is that he progressed because he played a card draw card at the same time, so he actually achieved something that turn as well as just not taking damage. But there are options now. We can go the Blizzard Flamestrike line, as you were talking about before. We can try and get Frost Nova Doomsayer going, but it doesn't. What does he do on the next turn is always the question. Like, when you're committing a Doomsayer, it's like, okay, if this goes off, how can I capitalize on it? If it doesn't go off, can I bail myself out of the mess still? So he has the option of trying to take the free roll on the Frost Nova Doomsayer, and then if it goes wrong, if the Doomsayer gets removed, he can then go down the Blizzard Flamestrike line. So yeah, I like this. I mean, the slight downside is that he doesn't really have a way to follow it up. Going to go ahead and Ice Lance for 7/7 as well, because now, if suddenly the worst happens and it's a huge mess, okay, great, Flame Strike, your board's gone.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, he does, even with using the Ice Lance, he has a lot of burn. Playing two torches and putting deck if he can find time to. As you said, can just end the game very quickly. And a second Doomsayer, it's actually pretty nice. He can just drop it this turn if he wants to buy a turn, or next turn he can plan to, again, if the board gets refilled, he can actually just go for Blizzard Doomsayer, which is slightly more expensive than the Frost Nova combo, but can still get the job done.
Yeah, so the Acolyte is an interesting pickup. The fact that he got another minion to play here means that we probably won't see the Doomsayer come down. He could have just tempo Doomsayered again this turn and just said, no, sorry, if you don't have Doomhammer yet, then you don't have a good play this turn. But since he drew the Acolyte, he's just going to choose to cycle. But unfortunately for RDU, the one key component he's been missing to this draw so far is the Ice Block. He has no way just yet of just stopping himself from dying to the direct damage. 10 coming in this turn. There's another 4 minimum in theory, but he does have Frostbolt and Ice Lance to lock that out for a couple of turns. So the race is on now, and Pyroblast is a big deal. Okay.
Yeah, the problem with that attack there for RDU was that it was so much face damage that like suddenly spells are like damage outs now as opposed. So as you said, like you kind of need the Ice Block because it doesn't matter if you can freeze the board a million times. If he just draws Lava Burst, then the game's over.
Can he ration this out? Like, what's his clock here? He can get to turn 10 and have lethal with the Pyroblast, I think. That involves casting Forgotten Torch. He's going to ping his own Acolyte here to try and max out, pick up the Ice Block. Ice Block would make it simple. That's even more damage. So since he hasn't drawn the Ice Block this turn, he does have one more try at it by trading the Acolyte, but he'd have to commit a card first since he's already at 10. So the problem with this is, if he wants to try and get lethal here, does he have to Ice Lance as well this turn if he wants to try and race?
Yeah, because you just that's it then. Your 4 damage is gone from Ice Lance. Unless you aim at a minion that's frozen, of course. But as you said, no Ice Block here. At this point, I mean, RDU's drawn a hell of a lot of his deck. He's been favouring card draw all game.
So now he has to torch the minion. Yeah, he's giving up the second freeze to deal the extra 4 damage to face. So this means now next turn he has Fireball, Ping. Potentially, but he would just be dead. This is so awkward to fit in. There's the Rock Biter, so both freezes are gone, which means that he will have lethal next turn if RDU can't find a way to stop it.
And that's not it, and there's no card draw left.
There's no card draw, there's no way to freeze face, there's no way to taunt, there's no way to gain life. That is just game.
Yeah, so RDU chose to use the Ice Lance to get in the damage to push for his win condition, but it's actually going to be the point that actually lost him the game at, because of the lack of ice blocks. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how many cards are left in the deck, but there's definitely not a lot in there.
I'm not convinced on the ice block, on the Ice Lance, sorry, because why do you Ice Lance?
Oh, because you're on Pyro next turn anyway, right?
Yes.
If you Ice Lance this turn.
So if he didn't Ice Lance, he would have been at 22. So if he went Ice Lance, Fireball, freezes him again, deals 12, then he's at 10. And then turn 10, Pyroblast. So if your line is just dodge spells for a couple of turns and get to turn 10, then it's better to ration out the Ice Lance. So I don't know. I feel like RDU's a good enough Freeze Mage player that there's probably something I'm missing in terms of like an out that let him draw. But yeah, RDU's going to go through the motions here, but this game is just over. Impact has locked up this series 3 games to 2. It goes all the way, but in the end, RDU's decision to bring the Freeze Mage instead of the Tempo Mage, expecting to play against mid-range Shaman and not aggro Shaman, has come back to bite him because the aggro Shaman has ended up dominating. Lothar, what do you think?
Well, we have talked about Freeze Mage a lot of this tournament already, right? And it seems like it's a recurring theme, right? At some point, there's an aggro deck dominating the scene. Then it kind of shifts into a mid-range tempo strategy, so it can punish the aggro deck because it's tailored this way, so it can be a good mirror match, let's say like that, right? Because it gets like lightning storms in there. The mid-range shaman is great against aggro shaman, right? And now when the mid-range shaman is dominating, the aggro shaman is getting back into the metagame. So Freeze Mage that should have been countering the mid-range decks is kind of missing the point.
Yeah. Sure.
Right, so kind of unfortunate for RDU that he didn't, get into the metagame right this time, because last time he did it correctly. But this is something that we talk about with the Priest as well, right? This is the same thing. Sometimes the deck just doesn't fit in the metagame, and you will lose the entire match because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that come out there as the game went pretty much, like as you would generally expect that matchup to go. It was probably a little bit unfortunate with RDU so much cycling the early game, not drawing a single ice block. That would have changed things up a little bit. But still, the matchup isn't particularly favored in that way, and we saw just the sort of punish for the freeze mage.
Do you have any input on the Ice Lance before we move on?
I think I would have saved it. I saved it.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about even saving the first Ice Lance.
Sure.
I know that the first Ice Lance was just to play around the hex and go into the Flame Strike range, right? But I was thinking like, how can you lose against the Shaman, right? And the answer is usually you lose because of Doomhammer.
Yeah, sure.
So if you have 3 outs,
3
freezes for the hero,
it's a long time.
That is a long time.
He had so
to
much
win the
staggered
game.
burn as well that if he could do like several turns of just burn plus freeze, because he had like double torch, he ended up with double fireball. He hadn't drawn the second fireball yet, and then he ended up with the pyroblast as well. So if on top of that you're stacking your deck with the 2 roaring torches as well, then like the burn plus freeze every turn line seems solid. But enough of that.
Anyway,
let's talk about the guy that
here.
won the series, not the guy that lost it. How you doing, Impact?
I'm doing great,
Can you put your mic closer to the mic?
Here? Like
Beautiful.
this? Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Feature match curse is broken. I'm like 0 for 4 in feature matches. Now I'm 1 in 4.
Okay.
So was I correct? Last time we saw you on a big tournament was Katowice, right?
I got a feature match in DreamHack Austin too. I lost.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you? What was your score actually at Katowice? Because we were kind of like reminiscing about
I went 0-1, but I top 8'd.
Okay.
Because it was open qualifier. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right. I got you back. I made so. It's like, I think he lost first round, but I mean he did like go through a huge qualifier to get there. So
Yeah. So now you're 3-1 here at Valencia, and you need to win basically 3 more for this day to be almost there in the top 16, right?
I mean, I brought the decks to do it, man. I brought the 4 best ones, man.
Tell me about it. Tell the viewers, what do you bring?
Well, I brought 4 decks that have the chance to sweep, right? Like I brought a warrior which got banned. I brought druid, which is like
a warrior,
the warrior.
Yes.
I brought druid, which like if I win any game with druid in that series, like I'm 100% to win that last series. Yogg druid carried it out against the zoo. Like I think that matchup's not that bad. Like you have ramp, you have good early tools, you have Mire Keeper, which fights for the board and ramps. Like if you're ahead, you can ramp. If you're behind, you can make a token. You have double war. Like that matchup's really not that bad. And
It looked kind of grim for you.
And then
not that Yogg, right?
I mean,
but like
he spent 3 turns doing nothing essentially. Like that's gonna be rough.
I mean, like you gotta bow down to the god of death, man. That card is just ridiculous, man. If you don't have a Yogg in your lineup, you're doing it wrong, man. I'll tell you that much.
Well, we're kind of sad about that, right, Sol?
I'm not.
No comment. I'm not a huge fan of Yogg myself, but it served you well in that series. But like a lot of the nonsense that happened, like the Blood Warriors and the ambush, like neither of that didn't have any impact at all. Like all you needed was the board clear.
Yeah, like, but still, like it's fancy.
Fun,
it's
right?
fancy, right? Like, what if I could Yogg him again? You know?
Yeah.
What do you so do you think that from what you've been saying, like last hero standing specifically, you do just bring a lineup that you think can sweep, like any deck can sweep?
Yeah.
Do you think that's the key to
That's the
winning
NA
this?
strat. Just play the best decks.
Because I was talking about Freeze Mage, right? And like, not only do I not think Freeze Mage is like that well positioned in general, but it's also just a 1-win deck, right? Like,
yeah,
why do you want a 1-win deck?
You bring it to counter the zoo.
Yeah. Do you really want a 1-win deck in Last Hero Standing overall?
I don't think so personally. And I was testing with RDU. Like we were practicing for the week coming in. He was super sold on Freeze Mage, and I'm telling him that deck has like 0 chance of sweeping. So like, there's no point to bring it. I would rather just bring Druid and like hope to draw my Innervates and Wild Growths like multiple games in a row. So I mean, it's just
very honest about your
tactic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Druid.
The Druid strat didn't change since beta, so
No.
Druid is as Druid does, man. And I'm the tree, man. I draw them Innervates like nobody's business.
Well, congrats again on the win.
Thanks.
I guess we'll be going into the break because we won't take your time since you want to prepare for the next match, right?
I mean, I don't even know if the pairings.
He doesn't need to prepare. He's just going to draw Innovate.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh yeah.
You're
yeah,
safe
I gotta
then.
go meditate under a tree outside. You know, just bring my Innervates to me.
Yeah. So we'll be going to the next match that we have prepared on the second table. So we'll be back in a few seconds. Thank
Great.
you, Impact, and congrats again. Good luck in the next round.
Thanks a lot, man.
So, who was in the second match? We had RDU and Impact.
I
and
think we had Cameron.
Powder and
Cameron versus
yes.
Powder, yes. I was going to say, I knew Cameron was playing, I just wasn't 100% who his opponent was. So no doubt we'll get the score.